Namaste to all of you. Today, on 14th of November, we celebrate for the first time the International Day Against Illicit Trafficking of Cultural Property. And this day was approved by the General Conference of UNESCO, and it shows that illicit trafficking of cultural property is of concern to all our 193 member states, which are part of the General Conference. And theft of art objects actually is not only the monetary loss of the object, it is mainly the loss of the historical context of an object, and also with this the cultural identity which an object brings with it. And if you see an object in an antique shop or an auction, it is just an object, but we do not know where it exactly came from a monastery or from an excavation. So we do not know this, and very often we even cannot say whether an object comes from Nepal. It often can also come from northern India, Bhutan or Tibet, but we cannot say it because we do not know in which context the object was found. Nepal actually lost a lot of cultural objects in the 1970s and 80s. In these times there was very little awareness among the population, and sometimes the hippies who traveled to Nepal, they took these objects, bought them for a cheap price, or even took them without paying, and sold them in Europe or in the US to finance their travels to Nepal. Today we have much less thefts, fortunately, but still there are thefts going on, mostly in remote areas of Nepal. And it is also of concern to us that very few objects have been repatriated, recuperated to Nepal, and this is often because we cannot prove that an object comes from a certain place. And how can you prove that an object was stolen from a certain place? Only if you have a photo and a detailed description, measurements of the objects. And this is part of inventories. So therefore we encourage the government of Nepal to establish detailed inventories, not only from museums, but also objects which are in temples, in monasteries, and kutis, or even private collection. So it's very important to have these inventories to be able to recuperate the objects. And actually we saw in other places of the world that objects which are inventoried are often not stolen because the thief cannot sell this object. UNESCO has a series of legal instruments against illicit traffic of cultural property. There is first the 1970 Convention, which has been ratified by the Government of Nepal, but which has some weaknesses. For example, it has no civil law provisions with which you can recuperate the objects, and therefore the member states of UNESCO created a much stronger convention, which is called the 1995 UNIDROIT Convention. It is complementary to the 1970 Convention and has very strong civil law provisions with which you can seize and recuperate objects much more easy, and also the thieves of the objects or those who do the illicit traffic can be punished. Unfortunately, Nepal has not yet ratified the 1995 Convention, and UNESCO strongly encouraged the Nepali government to ratify this convention. Thank you very much for listening to me. Dhanyabad.